Joining us.
Hi, great to be here.
That's great.
Hey, everyone.
So you've got this provocative idea about AI. You're calling it the new electricity. Tell us what that means.
I've been saying AI is the new electricity. About 100 years ago, here in the United States, the rise of electrification transformed every major industry. Today, we don't know how to run healthcare, communications, transportation, manufacturing, agriculture. All these industries were redesigned and transformed with electricity. I think AI technology has now reached a level of maturity where we see a surprisingly clear path for it to also transform every major industry. I was at a meeting of CEOs a couple of years ago, and I remember the CEOs that had come up with their internet strategy earlier were, kind of looked upon with admiration because they had figured out, right, how to transform the companies using the internet. I think that a few years from now, we'll be finding a lot of S&P 500 or Fortune 500 CEOs that will also similarly be wishing that they had developed their AI strategy earlier.
Right. Now, Sundar at Alphabet had a take on your take. What did he call it?
Oh, what was it? A couple months ago, I think Sundar's a great guy. I think he said AI might be even more profound than fire and electricity. I don't know. He's a great guy. I thought electricity is pretty big, but
right.
is AI bigger than fire?
Right. Fire can be a little more dangerous than electricity.
Yeah, but hey, listen, I am biased, right? I used to lead the Google Brain team, so I
right.
think Google is a fantastic AI organization.
Right.
So I love the Google AI team.
Okay. So I like the idea. How does, let's go a level deeper in terms of detail. Again, I get it, the new electricity. How is that going to work? How's that going to play out? What's the timeline? Just go into some detail for us.
There's a lot of hype about AI. So what is AI doing? It's creating tremendous amounts of economic value. But to cut through the hype, let me just describe the real type of AI, which is one type of AI, which I think would transform a lot of your industries. And is a lot of the value of AI today is created through one type of AI, which is all about learning input to output or A to B or input to output mappings. It's called supervised learning. But for example, for a long time, we've had spam filters that inputs an email, that's the input, and outputs 0 or 1. Is this spam or not? I used to do some work on loan applications. So input a loan application, it's the input. The output is, will they repay the loan? Turns out you can use this to make decisions as to what loans to approve. Or the most lucrative application of this today may be online advertising, where the input is an ad and some information about you when you visit the website, and the output is, will you click on this ad? Because for the large online advertising platforms, every click is money, and so the large online advertising platforms' ability to show you slightly more relevant ads is extremely lucrative. Speech recognition, input an audio clip, output the text transcript. Self-driving cars on the board of Drive.ai inputs a picture of what's in front of your car and the radar readings and output the position of the other cars. And so what we're seeing is machine translation, input English, output French. So what we're seeing is that this simple idea called supervised learning of A to B, input to output, this by itself is enough to transform major industries. There is one of the challenges of communications about AI is supervised learning. This A to B input-output mapping, it doesn't seem that sexy, right? It's not that glamorous, but by itself, it will transform major industries. And from a communication standpoint, one of the challenges has been clarifying how this tool will transform multiple industries, but is not on the path to building these, evil, sentient killer robots that some people seem to be worried about.
Right. So if AI is the new electricity, who are the new utilities that are going to be providing?
Yeah, I think that one of the exciting things about AI is that there will be value created all across the board. It's kind of, electricity was a major technological wave, so was the internet. And I think the internet created new winners and losers. And if you look in the tech world, right, I think that the internet gave some startups a fantastic start. So Google, Facebook, and Amazon were startups that did great. Some incumbent companies also did a great job transforming themselves to be internet companies. I think Microsoft and Apple did a great job transforming themselves. As you look at the disruption that AI is causing, I think that similarly, there will be some incumbents that will do a great job transforming themselves. I used to lead AI teams at Google and Baidu, so I'm biased, but I think Google and Baidu have done a fantastic job transforming themselves to be AI companies. But I think that just as the internet created opportunities for new startups, the rise of AI technology will also cause a wave of very, very important world-changing startups to be created as well.
But do you think it's going to be commoditized? I mean, for all these companies that are figuring out how to adopt an AI strategy, is it going to be as simple as like plugging a cord into a wall and getting some AI?
Yeah, I think AI strategy is very complex. And the decision of how your company adopts AI is often a C-suite decision. Maybe here's one concrete example. I think that for a lot of businesses in the AI era, building a defensible business, data, privileged access to data creates defensible businesses. So for example, I have a good sense of how web search technology works, but today I, in my personal capacity, do not have access to a data asset that tells me that, when you search the word United, if you're in the United States, you maybe want United Airlines, but if you search for it and you're in the UK, maybe you want Manchester United. So without access to that data asset that tells me what do people click on when you search for different keywords in different locations, even though I think I have a good sense of how web search technology works, without access to that data asset, I honestly don't know how to lead a small team to build a web search engine that's competitive with the great internet search engines of the world, right? Google, Baidu, Yandex, Bing, and so on. So in businesses like these, in many AI businesses, it is data, even more than technology, that makes a business defensible. And this is affecting corporate strategy. We're seeing companies with outbuilt teams with very complicated data acquisition strategies. And so I think that C-suites really should be thinking carefully about how the adoption of AI affects their businesses, just as maybe 20 years ago, right? 15 years ago, a lot of CEOs maybe should have started thinking earlier about how the rise of the internet was going to affect their businesses.
But let's keep going on that. So let's say you're talking to, got a lot of C-suite executives here. How should they think about AI? What are some common misconceptions about incorporating AI strategies? What's the do's and don'ts?
Yeah, let's see, some recommendations. So I've met a lot of leaders that want to adopt an AI strategy. So some common patterns I've seen. I think that it makes sense for a lot of organizations to do two things. One is build a centralized AI function using both internal and external resources. You shouldn't have a wasn't built here type of mentality, but to build a centralized AI function using both internal and external resources to matrix an AI capability into the different teams, into the different business units. Right? As a CEO, you can't build 10 AI teams for your 10 business units. Instead, your odds of success are much better if you build one AI team leveraging in-house as well as license and open source and so on, all things from outside community, and matrix this type of organization to find the best opportunities across your multiple lines of business. That's one. And to make an analogy, again, if you look at the great AI companies, AI, actually take Google and Baidu as an example, is not just advertising. Right? AI has transformed dozens of products, dozens of lines of businesses in these great AI companies. So, online advertising, yes, but also web search and the quality of the maps data that the companies have, and the online logistics network, and computer security, and the way that images are taken into account during searches. It goes on and on and on. The great AI companies, Google, Baidu, Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon, many others, use AI to transform dozens of businesses and products. And so too in other companies. And I think that designing the right org structure will help do that. One of the industries I'm most excited about is the manufacturing industry. So Landing.ai has been working with global manufacturers, and similar to the existing great AI tech companies, I think in the manufacturing industry. Today, some factories have thousands of people using human eyes to inspect objects for defects, or scratches and dents and so on. Thanks to recent advances in AI, the manufacturing industry we can now put in place software to make that more systematic and reliable than even what a typical human inspector can do. But it's not just automatic inspection, it's also preventative maintenance and automatic optimization of all the machines in the manufacturing lines, and on and on and on. And so I think that multiple industries will have great opportunities and will also feel pressure to use internal and external resources to build these success stories. And then the standard organizational change advice, this is so generic, but maybe needs to be said as well, is to work with the right partners to get you the first success stories that then allows you to build momentum, to then take AI to more and more and more units of your business, and then the spiral up from there.
Was there an application of AI that you've seen in the last year or so that surprised you? It's like, whoa, that's cool, I didn't expect that.
Let's see. I think that the road to making autonomous vehicles a reality might be shorter than most people think. But I've worked on that myself.
And why is that? I mean, we had an interesting
something
session last night about it, and it does seem like there's a lot of speed bumps, literal and metaphorical, along the way.
Well, see, I think I know some things that are not publicly known.
You what? I'm sorry?
I know some things that are not publicly known. But I think there'll be ways for autonomous vehicles
What's your timeline for autonomous vehicles?
Just give it some time. I'll get back to you on that.
So when is the New York Times going to be able to write a story where the first sentence of the story is, turns out it's okay to text and drive?
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, give the community some time. We'll figure it out. We'll get it.
You're tough.
I think maybe one thing. So starting May, maybe like sometime last year, I was systematically looking at a lot of industries. One thing that did surprise me was how every time I walk into the factory floor, right, the great factories, fantastic engineers, but when an AI team sits together with a manufacturing team, there seems like there's so many projects and low-hanging fruit. This is true for many industries. I've just been spending a lot of time on factory floors. One thing about my own experience working in AI, really kind of as an innovator, you kind of have to do things before it's obvious, right? So, when I started building really large neural networks, people said, why are you doing that, Andrew? It's like, why are you wasting time trying to get thousands of computers to build large neural networks? What's the point of that? But then after a while, it became obvious. And then more recently, as we started to enter the manufacturing industry, I honestly couldn't understand why people could fail to be excited about manufacturing. But now that we've been doing it for a little bit, I think more and more people seem to be saying, wow, AI manufacturing, that's pretty cool. So.
And who's on the leading edge of that? Which companies in terms of manufacturing, incorporating AI?
Let's see, we've been working with Foxconn, so I think Foxconn has been very, the leadership of Foxconn specifically is very forward-thinking. But we're working with a few manufacturers in Asia, in the US, and in Europe. So I think several companies that have been working with us have very forward-thinking leadership. In eras of technological disruption, leadership matters. It often takes a visionary CEO that realizes this technology will impact multiple business units because, maybe here's an example. Let's say you have a gift card division. Your gift card division leader might be fantastic at running a gift card business, but if he or she doesn't have a background in AI, it's actually very difficult for them to figure out how to use AI to transform the gift card division. And AI will probably transform the gift card division, how we design, market, price, and so on. So often it takes visionary leadership in a company to recognize the value of AI early on, to then figure out at a company level how this fits in, and to design the structure in order to help a company go through this transformation. So we've been fortunate to engage with quite a few visionary CEOs on multiple continents that see the transformation coming and are willing to embrace it.
And take us inside the Foxconn plan. How are they using AI? Give us a specific example.
Oh, I don't
proprietary.
I don't want to speak to Foxconn specifically, but I think visual inspection is one large category. That's true for multiple companies around the world in multiple continents. But and when I look at the AI technology, one of the challenges is it's still really difficult, right? Because I don't know, last week I was sitting down with a manufacturing partner, not one we've talked about publicly before, but I was sitting down looking at the data, and they were showing me, we're meeting at the airport, they showed me on their laptop, right, some of the data they had collected in their plant. And I looked at the data and I kind of thought, yeah, we could build AI to do this particular visual inspection task, but actually really difficult. Some of the data we're getting out of the manufacturing plants is really using AI technology that I think was just invented, published in an academic conference in the last 2 years. So this work today really takes bleeding edge AI to do. Let me give a more terrestrial example. I don't know, a lot of people are using Amazon Echoes or Google Homes or Apple Siris and so on. The reason we're willing to adopt these products is when you say, Alexa, what time is it or whatever, the chance of the Amazon Alexa waking up and responding to you is very high, right? If it hears you only 50% of the time, you won't accept that as a product. And I let Baidu do OS, which is a similar product in China several years ago. So one of the things that drives AI adoption is that you really need the AI to perform. Online advertising, whether you have a 4% chance versus a 5% chance of clicking on an ad, that has a significant economic implication on the bottom line of the company. So one of the challenges facing AI, including manufacturing, but a lot of these other industries today, is having a great AI team really matters because whether your speech recognition system responds only 95% versus 99% of the time, that makes a huge difference to whether you're actually willing to use it. And so I hope it'll take some time for AI talent to spread out and for more people to learn this. But I think this is actually why another tactic that a lot of corporate leaders are employing is to provide broad-based training. 10 years ago, employee development was really difficult. We didn't have good tactics to do that, and the ROI wasn't great. But thanks to the rise of online digital content, again, I'm co-founder of Coursera, but really, Coursera, Khan Academy, Lynda.com, a lot of online digital content. We can now train up people at scale in a way that was never possible before. So I find that the smart chief learning officers are realizing that you have a new job. It's no longer to create content, it's to curate content, because there's now so much good content on places like Coursera, but also a lot of other places, that the smart CLOs realize your job is to curate content, to train up your employees, and there are now the tools to do so at low cost and at a very high ROI.
We're going to go to questions. One last question from me. You're obviously a technology optimist, and you've got pretty aggressive timeline in your head about how quickly people are going to adopt it. So if you were a technology pessimist, what would you be worrying about? The scenario that you've got in your head of like, this is what the future is going to look like. What are the barriers? What's going to derail that or make it not turn out such a great movie?
Jobs. We've done a great job creating wealth for certain parts of the country. I think the East and West Coast have done great. But frankly, if we are, to be really, really blunt, if we are to create not just a wealthier society, but also create a fairer one, we have important work ahead of us. To be really blunt, we did leave many parts of this country behind as we created tremendous wealth in just a few states. I think that every person deserves and it's interesting actually throughout this session, right, earlier today, multiple speakers said things like, well, someone's got to work on the problem of, reskilling and training, and like someone's got to work on that. I will work on that. We're one of the few leaders that I actually care passionately about that, and I will work on that because I think unless we're able to give every person a meaningful education and a meaningful shot at a great career, then I don't feel very good creating a wealthier but unfair society. So I think we have to do both.
That's great. That's great. Questions for Andrew? In front here. Microphone is coming, and please introduce yourself. Thank you.
Hi, Natalie McCullough from Microsoft. You mentioned that org structure is an important decision that companies make in harnessing the power of AI, and I'd love to hear what you think is working in terms of how companies are organizing these capabilities.
Yeah, Microsoft. Yeah, I saw Satya last week. I think Microsoft's doing a fantastic job in AI, actually, frankly. So I think that when a company is building up an AI function, I've seen companies, I think building up as a CEO can only make certain moves, and I think one great move is to build a centralized AI team because that builds a community. It gives the AI group a community to share ideas with, keep learning, keep figuring out this very immature technology, even as you apply it to your industry. Now, one of the things companies should do is, in a world of limited resources, and frankly, we live in a world of limited resources, companies should do only what you can specialize in and be great at, right? This is such generic advice, but it still needs to be said since not all companies do this. But one thing that's changed in the world compared to 10 years ago is thanks to the rise of the internet, we now have access to the core competencies of other companies at much lower cost and much higher efficiency. So once upon a time, we had to build monolithic enterprises and do everything ourselves, right? And you had to kind of invent everything from HR to operations to supply chain, and it was the monolithic companies that did a great job. But in today's world, which is much more fluid, maybe you could use a outsourced payroll system and use open source software of some of your AI capabilities. And does everyone need to build their own cloud servers, or can someone, or maybe you should use someone else's cloud servers? So I think so too it is with AI capabilities. If there are things specific to your company that are really specific to you, then build it yourself. But there will be many industry-wide solutions, and if 10 or 100 companies all need similar solutions, there will be very meaningful opportunities for companies to buy those solutions rather than build everything in-house, while preserving your limited resources to build only the very few number of things that will give you a differentiated advantage.
That's great. We had a question in the back. Again, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Jacob Morgan. And I know we've been spending a day and a half talking about AI, but nobody actually defined what AI is. So, in other words, a decade ago, I had software on my computer that could help me diagnose a Wi-Fi network issue. Is that Wi-Fi or is that AI? I've talked to other people who say that Deep Blue, they don't consider that AI. So how do you distinguish between what AI is versus just an algorithm or a software or a program, or how do you know when it's actually AI versus not AI?
So existential. I love that.
I think Deep Blue was AI. It's been a constantly moving target. It seems that the public perception, a lot of AI has been aspirational and whatever is not yet done yet, but might come in the future. I think part of and so once upon a time, finding the shortest way to say, drive from here to San Francisco, that was a bleeding edge AI algorithm called the A-star algorithm. But now it's just a GPS unit. How is that AI? So I think one of the confusions is that we have these long-term, fantastic, slightly science fiction-ish aspirations of human-level intelligence or artificial general intelligence or AGI, but almost all the progress I'm seeing is in building specialized intelligences. And one of the problems is both specialized intelligences and general intelligence, we use the same term AI to describe both of them. And I think the progress in specialized intelligences, like better spam filters, better machine translation, better speech recognition, better inspection in factories, that's creating tremendous value and will transform every major industry. But just because we're making so much progress in specialized intelligences does not mean, we're making a comparable amount of progress in artificial general intelligence. Mm-hmm. And I think the confusion of this terminology, my friend Sebastian articulates this very well as well. I think this confusion of terminology has made people think about AI in sometimes slightly strange ways and think it's always not whatever works right now.
Right. Super provocative. Thank you so much, Andrew. Please join me in thanking Andrew.